Thank you. Well, good day. Good day, everyone. Thank you all for being here. First of all, I just want to take this opportunity to mention that we are gathered today on Treaty 6 lands. Of course, pay our respects to the histories and languages and the cultures of our First Nations, Métis and Inuit people from right across Canada, whose presence continues to enrich our vibrant community. So thank you. Thank you to the Minister of Justice, Mickey Amory, Minister of Education, Demetrios Nicolaitis, Stacey Levitt-Wright, the CEO of the Jewish Federation of Edmonton, and Abraham Abagush, the principal of Edmonton Islamic Academy, and Acting Alberta Sheriff Chief Bob Andrews, as well as my Assistant Deputy Minister Ross Nairn, who's also present to answer any technical questions. We're here today to talk about an important issue, that's protecting the rights while also protecting safety. Alberta's government has been very clear over the past few months. Albertans have a right to learn, worship, and socialize freely, and to feel safe while doing so. Over the past few months, we've seen a rise in incidents of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, both globally and right here at home. Since this rise in tensions, our government and department officials have been in constant communication with local law enforcement and community representatives. Too often, certainly lately, hate-targeted violence has tarnished peaceful protest activities, giving rise to a climate of confrontation and an increased sense of fear felt among our province's Jewish and Muslim communities. Albertans and their government will not stand for this. Hate and bias-motivated acts of harassment and vandalism have no place on our streets, schools, or places of worship. Doesn't matter where you are from or where you pray, in Alberta, you have a right to feel safe walking down the street or going to school. Alberta's government remains steadfast in our commitment to confront and uproot hate sentiment wherever it exists in our province. As we've seen right here and elsewhere, no society is immune to this serious problem. That's why in 2021, we established the Alberta Security Infrastructure Program. Through this program, organizations serving communities are identifiable groups at risk of hate or bias-motivated violence that can access a grant funding to help cover costs associated with security assessments and enhancements to security infrastructure at their facilities. This funding has helped hundreds of diverse organizations pursue security enhancements that meet their particular security needs. Since its inception, the ASIP grant has made a difference by providing $2.4 million in funding to 231 organizations and help create safer spaces for those they serve. Given the increased potential for threats to public safety here in Alberta since October, we've taken swift and immediate action on a number of fronts. We have to continue to be responsive to the evolving security realities that Albertans and organizations face. Hate has no place in this province. As we've seen in other parts of the country, hate sentiment and targeted violence are on the rise, even to the extent that some schools have now become a focus for vandalism and harassment. This will not be tolerated, and this will not be tolerated for sure in Alberta. Today, I'm announcing a temporary expansion of the ASIP grant. For the next 12 months, Islamic and Jewish faith-based schools within Alberta's school system will be eligible to apply for funding to cover costs associated with protecting their students, teachers, and their facilities. In addition to supporting expenses related to security infrastructure enhancements, up to $20,000 in ASIP grant funding will be available to support eligible schools that identify a short-term need for a physical security presence on campus. Many of the institutions that we have met with have identified that they can cover the costs. For those who are unable to, we will make accommodations on a case-by-case basis. Shameful, hate-motivated behaviors are less likely to occur when we know that others are watching. I've said this time and time again, officer presence matters. So physical patrolling can be useful. It can be a useful deterrent against targeted vandalism and other hate-motivated crime. That's why we're also making available in Alberta the Alberta Sheriff's to support our local law enforcement in the protective monitoring of vulnerable sites like synagogues, like mosques, Jewish and Islamic schools, and community centers. Our response to this very complex issue has been immediate, and we will continue to work with community members, local law enforcement agencies, and our federal and provincial counterparts to ensure the rights of members of the public are protected while maintaining the public safety. To be clear, I am not insinuating that these locations are under any current threat or should fear attack, but by providing more options for bolstering the physical security presence around sensitive sites, we're helping to ensure that Albertans, their schools, their places of worship are protected from heinous acts of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. Action driven by hatred is cowardly and unacceptable, and Alberta's government has zero tolerance for these actions. And the hate-motivated harassment of any Albertan is something that our government must act decisively to confront. And we are. We won't compromise on safe educational, religious, or cultural environments because we are all Albertans who have a right to live, learn, worship, free from fear and intimidation. It is critical that the support that we offer meets the current moment. I encourage Islamic and Jewish bilingual and faith-based schools to, of course, visit alberta.ca to learn more about the options that will be available to help them protect their facilities and keep students and staff safe. And with that, I say thank you very much, and I will now yield the floor to my friend Mickey Ambry to say a few words. Minister of Justice, thank you.
Thank you, Minister Ellis. I'm very pleased to be here today at this important event. As Minister Ellis already highlighted, the tragic events that we've witnessed over the past several weeks in the Middle East have been heartbreaking. Thousands of innocent civilians on both sides of the conflict, including an unprecedented number of children, have lost their lives. Humanitarian organizations all over the world are reporting that millions of people in Gaza are unable to access basic human needs like water and electricity. These events have weighed heavily on many Albertans, many of whom have close connections to friends and family in the region. We've also seen and felt the impacts of the grief, fear, anger, and pain that this conflict has caused in our communities here at home. I share in these emotions and pray and urge all of those involved to end the conflict as quickly as possible. I also share in the concerns of my colleagues and Albertans over the recent rise in acts of Islamophobia and anti-Semitism here at home. We must remain vigilant here in Alberta to make sure that our province is a safe place for everyone. First, let me be clear. Hate-motivated violence and crime or racism of any kind has no place here in this province. Hate-motivated violence and crime against innocent Albertans will be prosecuted to the best of our abilities. Today's announcement of the temporary expansion of the Alberta Security Infrastructure Program, the ASIP grant, to include Islamic and Jewish faith-based schools for the next 12 months is part of Alberta's ongoing support and action. We are taking action to protect Albertans from this violence, with particular emphasis on protecting our children in faith-based schools. It is critical that we deal with hate-motivated crimes through our criminal justice system. The Alberta Crown Prosecution Service's specialized prosecution offices prosecute hate-motivated crimes and offenses that have an element of hate or are bias-motivated. These can include charges like assault or mischief. Sections of the criminal code can also be used to show hate as an aggravating factor when dealing with sentencing. We have been working on other ways to tackle this problem and protect Albertans. Through Alberta's Anti-Racism Action Plan, we are taking meaningful action to address racism and help build a more welcoming and inclusive province for all Albertans. The Alberta Human Rights Act protects Albertans from discrimination in protected areas and based on protected grounds such as religious beliefs or race. Alberta has appointed 2 hate crime community liaisons who are working directly with cultural communities and groups most targeted by hate and bias-motivated crimes. These liaisons will make recommendations on how we can develop and implement a coordinated and comprehensive strategy to prevent these crimes and to support victims. The Hate Crimes Coordination Unit was also created to work with law enforcement groups across the province to help reduce and respond to hate-driven occurrences by facilitating training opportunities, interagency intelligence gathering, and investigative supports. We know that many Albertans have experienced serious grief and pain because of the ongoing world conflicts, and that's why we are encouraging everybody who needs help to reach out for local support by calling Alberta 211, which is available in more than 170 languages, or the Alberta Mental Health Helpline by calling 1-877-303-2642. We are taking a multifaceted approach and will continue to do all that we can to protect those targeted by hate and bias motivated crimes and support those who need help to get through these difficult times. In recent weeks, I've received reports from Albertans about the use of excessive force by police during some protests in Calgary. I take these allegations very seriously. As a result, I understand that ACERT is investigating one of these allegations that occurred in the city of Calgary on November 19, 2023, and the results of such investigation will be made public once that investigation is concluded. I also want to be clear. People from all faiths and backgrounds are welcome here in Alberta. We welcome you, and we will take all steps needed to protect you. Let me also state unequivocally, the fundamental right to peaceful, lawful, and safe protest belongs to all Canadians. We've seen thousands of Albertans voice their concerns in a peaceful manner, and we will protect their right to do so. Every Albertan has a right to feel safe in their community, and we're taking action to make that happen. Thank you. I will now invite Minister Nicolaides to come to the floor and say a few more remarks. Thank you.
Sure, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this very important announcement. I want to thank, in particular, of course, Minister Ellis for the important work in expanding the ACIP program as he's outlined, and I want to thank Minister Amory and our other colleagues and guests who are joining us here today. As Alberta's Minister of Education, I want to be very clear. Every student in Alberta should feel absolutely safe and secure when they walk through the doors of their school. Our schools should always be welcome, caring, and respectful places for our students. Right now, unfortunately, that's not the case for too many Jewish and Muslim students in our province. I've heard firsthand from many families about concerns with respect to attending schools during these challenging times. As Minister Ellis has outlined a moment ago, Alberta's United Conservative Government is taking decisive steps to keep Albertans safe by expanding the Alberta Security Infrastructure Program grant. Islamic and Jewish faith-based schools will now have access to temporary funding for security enhancements that will offer peace of mind to students, educators, other staff, and their families. Any school that demonstrates that they're at risk of hate or bias-motivated crimes or incidents may apply. Funding will be available to help cover the costs of security assessments and security enhancements up to $20,000 for schools that identify a short-term need for physical security on campus. We must not, and we will not, allow rising hate and threats to impact our students, their schools, their staff, and their families. Alberta's government will continue to work with school authorities to ensure we're doing everything we can to provide students with safe and secure learning environments. I know, additionally, on this point, that many of our school divisions have done tremendous work in reaching out to local law enforcement agencies and working collaboratively with them when and if any concerns have been raised. Of course, we all collectively continue to hope for a peaceful resolution to the conflict overseas and a return to normal for our students and our families here in our province. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. Thank you to the Alberta government for inviting me to give remarks today. On behalf of Alberta's Jewish community, I want to express our sincere appreciation to Minister Mike Ellis and the Government of Alberta for the additional support and protection for places of worship, community centres, and faith-based schools. All Albertans want to send their children to school knowing they are safe, and with this added layer of protection, our community obtains the security it needs to function. Tonight, Jewish people around the world start the celebration of Hanukkah. It is, amongst many other things, a celebration of good over evil. It's a celebration of light over darkness. Today's announcement gives us light in these dark days that have descended upon our people over the last 2 months. With the rise in anti-Semitism and incidents of hate targeted towards Alberta's Jewish community, we have required additional security measures so our children can attend school without fear of attack, so we can worship in our synagogues, and so we can attend cultural community events. According to Statistics Canada, Jewish people make up only 1% of Canada's population, but we are the target of 67% of religiously motivated hate crimes. The attacks have become more brazen across the country, with shots fired at Jewish schools and firebombs thrown at synagogues. Alberta's Security Infrastructure Program has been a lifeline to our community, giving Jewish Albertans security and peace of mind. We commend Minister Ellis and the Government of Alberta for sending a powerful message of support in the face of hate through the expansion of the ASIP grant and the provision of Alberta sheriffs to protect our community as required. Thank you.
Good morning, honourable ministers, distinguished guests, and to all Albertans, Assalamu alaikum. I wish peace and blessings upon you all. My name is Abraham Abarouche, and I am the principal of the Edmonton Islamic Academy, and I'm honored to have been invited on behalf of all Islamic schools within our great province to partake in today's announcement and to validate the importance of this added security measure in faith-based independent schools. I'd like to begin by thanking the Honourable Minister Ellis and his staff from the Public Safety and Emergency Services offices for approving this grant. I'd also like to acknowledge Honourable Nicolaitis. About 6 weeks ago, we had the opportunity to host our Minister of Education at our school. During the visit, the Minister was very receptive to hearing about our security concerns and the increase in hate-related incidents towards our students and their families. We also would like to thank the Honourable Minister Amory, who has also been engaging with our community on a number of occasions and has expressed concern for student safety and well-being. As a result of these open discussions, our entrusted ministers took quick action and instituted a strategy that we are in full support of. This is a great example of how government and community relationships work here in Alberta, and I want to thank our ministers and the provincial government for recognizing that our community is going through a very difficult time as we face an increase in hate incidents towards Muslims here in Alberta, and we fully support the need for expanding the Alberta Security Infrastructure Program to include faith-based independent schools. As I had mentioned earlier, I am the principal of the Edmonton Islamic Academy. We are a K-12 Islamic school. We provide education to children. These children are the future of our province, and I can confirm that we have had moments of anti-racism incidents in our school, especially over the last couple of months. At times, our families, our staff, and our students have expressed concern with the increase of hate-incited incidents. As a school, our resources to provide security have limitations, and this grant will assist us in supporting our security demands. Our students and staff deserve to go to school and feel safe and feel secure. They should not have to worry about getting harassed for wearing the hijab on their way home from school, or worrying about unwanted visitors entering our building, or having to face hate comments while online or even at times in person. Schools are places for children, and they deserve to live in a province that is free from hate, that is free from Islamophobia, and is free from any form of anti-Muslim or anti-Palestinian threats. At our school, we teach our students to uphold an intercultural and interfaith understanding and to use their skills and intellects for the betterment of humanity. We teach our students to be proud of their Islamic identity and to love all people regardless of their religious beliefs. We take time to celebrate our differences and to make every effort to celebrate our diversity here in Alberta. These are the traits of a Muslim. And by extension, these virtues represent what it is to be an Albertan. Our province was built on core values of respect, acceptance, and kindness. However, targeted attacks on faith groups does exist and have a negative impact on the safety and the well-being of Alberta students. As Albertans, we need to come together at this very difficult time to reflect and to realign our efforts to reclaim the Alberta spirit that makes our province so special for all people, for all faiths, including Alberta's Muslims. Today's announcement by the Alberta government to include faith-based independent schools under the ASIP program is a positive step towards ensuring Alberta students of all faiths can access their education in a safe and secure environment. We thank our ministers today, and we look forward to continuing on this path towards a better Alberta for all. Assalamu alaikum.
This brings us to the question and answer portion of our announcement. We do have some reporters here on the floor, and we have reporters on the phone. So we'll just start in the room. If you guys just want to ask anyone any questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Travis McEwen, CBC News, Edmonton. Is this measure seen as a preemptive measure based on what we've seen in other parts of Canada, or have we seen enough incidents in schools as well?
Well, so there's a bit of a preemptive measure. We certainly have seen some of the things that have occurred in other jurisdictions in Canada, but I would say this was kind of instigated by parents, right? And both in the Jewish community, the Muslim community, who would tell me and certainly my colleagues stories of their children watching the news and saying, you know, Mom, Dad, like, it's just going to happen in our school, as an example. And there was genuine fear in both the Jewish community and in the Muslim community. And so shortly after October 7th, I know Minister Amory and I were together during that particular day at a conference given around that time. And, you know, I instructed the department to reach out to all of our communities, both Muslim and Jewish, to make sure, you know, what can we do to support you? So it has been a bit of an evolving process. And as I talk with these wonderful people from the Jewish community, my wonderful friends from the Muslim community, we are just providing avenues and mechanisms for their community to feel safe. So, you know, as I indicated in my reports, you know, we have no information at this time that there is a direct threat. However, you know, the old policeman in me says we always got to be prepared, and certainly to make sure that our community feels safe has always been a priority of mine.
Did you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, I'm curious on the side of the sheriffs being used for security. Why is that a good fit, and how is that going to work, as we know some of the sheriffs have been used in Calgary and Edmonton as well?
Sure. Well, thank you. So obviously I've indicated many times officer presence matters. Certainly the first point of contact will be the Edmonton Police Service, the Calgary Police Service, just as an example, and anywhere where there is our friends in the Muslim and the Jewish communities. However, certainly some of the feedback we've gotten from those organizations is, you know, Minister, we are already stretched as far as what we're dealing with regarding organized crime and other issues facing the communities. So again, I'm always trying to think outside of the box. You know, what is it that the communities have been asking for? What they're asking for is an officer presence. Okay, so if we can provide that officer presence as a potential mechanism, understanding that the local jurisdiction would have first right to choose whether or not they want to do it or not. We just want to make sure that all options are on the table. And of course, there's an operational component to make sure that those sheriffs would be in contact with the local law enforcement. And you know, I think from a technical perspective, we've worked out those details. So. Yes.
Have any more questions?
So when we're talking about the increase, are we talking about both severity and number? And I know sometimes there's a lag with the police data because they have to determine hate motivated versus hate crime. Can you speak to, is it both number and severity?
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit of both. I mean, certainly our folks that are on the ground, I'm sure they certainly maybe be able to speak to it a bit better than I can. But again, we're just trying to be responsive to the needs of the community. And you know, I don't want to get too emotional here, but you know, when I'm hearing stories about, you know, young kids, doesn't matter, Jewish, Muslim, who are, you know, under the age of 10 as an example, right? And okay, this is Alberta. Like, I'm not going to let people live in fear here. And so having the sheriffs, like, look, ladies and gentlemen, like, I've been around a long time. I mean, this is, again, Alberta being a shining example for the world, right? Look at this. We're standing here because we love our children and we love our community. And, you know, I don't have any specific numbers, but I'm sure somebody might be able to get you some. Thank you.
And it might be too big of a question for this press conference, but I mean, what I'm hearing is everybody here values peace,
Yeah.
safety, the right to practice their religion. Everyone wants their children protected. And yet when we see global events flare up, we see hate flare up here. So what's it going to take to stop that hate and to have that embrace of...
That is a big question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a very big question. But I would say this, again, this is a shining example of how everyone and every culture can come together, understanding that it is about peace, that it is about protecting our children, and making sure everyone in the community has the ability to practice their faith and practice their cultural norms in a way free of hate. And again, I will reiterate this: we are not going to tolerate that in this province.
Do we have any more questions from the floor? Go ahead, Lisa.
I might, take this opportunity to ask Minister Amory a question about Bill 8. It's been just over a month, I think, since you introduced it. I've heard you speak to it a couple times, but obviously it passed last night. And I'm still a little bit confused about some of your comments that you've made about the bill. You've talked about how it's important for modernizing the government, but I still don't understand the specific reason why you need to take the rules about receiving gifts and the maximum amount of value of those gifts out of the legislative debate into regulations. Why do those decisions need to be made behind closed doors, essentially?
Well, first off, they're not made behind closed doors. This was actively debated for many hours in the legislature. We have decided to move the prescribed amounts into regulation because that is a common theme that we're doing with a number of different bills, and that is a common theme of our government. We're trying to make things far more efficient for Albertans rather than moving or changing or amending the amounts each and every time by legislative act. We are able to move them into regulation now and have that done by order in council, which is a publicly available document, and it's not done behind closed doors. We also recognize the need, and we've heard from stakeholders all across the province that the amounts potentially, they have not been changed, they have not been addressed for a very long time. And we are an outlier as it comes right now in terms of what those numbers are. We're trying to align them, and we will look to align them with the rest of Canada.
And just to follow up on that, the Premier has spoken publicly about taking issue with the Ethics Commissioner reminding her about conflict of interest rules. She was irritated that the Ethics Commissioner was reminding her about the value of gifts and the specific events that she could or could not go to. So, and she also thought it was important that she be able to attend events. So I'm wondering which stakeholders specifically are asking for this or have asked for this, And why can't MLAs just buy a ticket to a hockey game or a skybox? Why do you have to receive them as gifts? Why is that important?
I think as a function of our office and our role, both as ministers and as MLAs, there's a certain expectation that we involve ourselves with various events of the community. We do a number of events each and every week. I think all of us can attest to that. I don't think the Premier was necessarily irritated with the Ethics Commissioner, who's done a wonderful job in providing me advice and the rest of members of Cabinet and caucus. I think the challenges that we're experiencing are the limitations on doing things that we think align with our social duties in our office. One of those are the challenges and limitations that we have in attending Stampede events, for example. And I think that we have limitations as to how long we can stay at a particular event, who we can meet with, what type of event we can go to. These do not reflect, in my view, the current environment of what's happening right now. Things have changed, things have evolved since the Act was last addressed, and Bill 8 will attempt to repair those issues.
We're going to head to the phone lines now to take some questions. Ask the operator if she could put through the first caller.
Carrie Tate, Globe and Mail.
Hi, thanks for taking my questions. It's for the ministers available today. I'm wondering what the ministers of the government make of Calgary Mayor Jody Gondek bowing out of the menorah lighting today.
Well, look, I'm not going to speak to what she is or is not doing, but I'm certainly, from our government's perspective, we certainly believe in celebrating the traditions of all of our diverse cultural communities right here in Alberta's. And I know members attending, we do have a member attending an event in Calgary. Minister Jones will be there in Calgary, and Minister Nally will be at the legislature for the menorah lighting event. So I'll leave that there.
Did you have a follow-up question?
The mayor indicated that she felt like this had been reframed and picking sides. Does that seem reasonable?
Well, I think that's a good question you can ask the mayor. I'm not going to get into what she may or may not do or what she may or may not say. Again, on this side, when I say this side, I'm used to being in the legislature and saying this side of the House. I apologize. That's what I mean by that. But what I'm referring to is certainly our government certainly believes that you should be able to practice your traditions, again, of all diverse cultural communities, and we support that. No matter what your culture is, certainly no matter what your religion is, that is a priority for our government to make sure that everyone can practice freely. And again, we are sending 2 representatives, both Edmonton and Calgary, to make sure they're for the lighting of the menorah. Thank you.
That's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and if you have any follow-up questions, you can send me an email. Thank you. No, because we have somewhere that we have to be, Michelle. So.